Hello, it's time for a Starlink update. I got this Starlink Gen 2 system I think 3 years ago now, and it's been working perfectly well until recently. So the update is actually going to be a complete replacement of this, it turns out. This bit here is actually working perfectly fine as far as I can tell, so this is not where the problem is. The problem was with this piece. This is the router that powers the dish, and I was sitting at my computer doing a very large update. I don't know if you've downloaded any games on Steam these days, but sometimes they are enormous, like 80, 90, even 100 gigabytes, I think I saw one time. And so it was chugging away for about 30 minutes or so doing one of those enormous downloads. It was going about 10 megabytes per second, and everything looked good, but I heard this little buzzing noise, because my computer's just a couple of meters away right there. So I could hear it buzzing, and I came over, and it seemed like it was buzzing from the bottom area around here somewhere, and I was standing here listening for a few seconds, and then I had a loud pop, which sounded exactly like an electrolytic capacitor exploding, and I thought, oh shit, there it goes. But surprisingly, when I turned it off, waited a couple of minutes, turned it back on, it came back to life again. And then fast forward to 2 weeks ago, the same thing happened. I was downloading a large update on Steam again, Path of Exile 2 I think it was this time. No buzzing or pop this time, just completely silent. But the same thing happened, so about 20 minutes into that large download, everything just stopped working. But unfortunately this time when I turned it off and waited and turned it back on again, did not come back to life this time. So I made a support ticket and I got a chatbot to help me, which at first I was not very pleased to see, but it actually turned out to be reasonably good. And the chatbot was able to confirm that I had not used the connection for a few hours, and it was also able to put in an order for a replacement that it said would be compatible, and it took all of about 2 minutes to get that done. I was quite impressed actually that the chatbot could do all of that. I'll put a link in the description to the discussion that we had if you're interested to see that. So everything looked good until a few days later when I looked in my letterbox and I saw this. And I knew straight away, as soon as I opened the letterbox, I knew this is not what I wanted. It's much smaller than that, and it only weighs a few hundred grams, whereas the router weighs, it's got to be 1.5 kilos at least. So it turns out this is a mini router, which is just for range extending. If you have a large house, you might want to put another Wi-Fi system in the other end of your house or something to get better reception over that area. So this is completely useless for what I need. So I had to make another support ticket and wait another 5 or 6 days. So here we have the Gen 3 kit, and they've done a great job of making this box compact, because the first one of these that I got, the box is about that high off the ground, but now it's like down here. Well done. And I think that's mainly because now the antenna is no longer actuated, so there's no motors in the base of this that will like automatically move it around. You just have to put it in the right place yourself, but that is not too difficult and it makes things a lot cheaper, I guess, not having those motors in. So as far as I can tell, the Gen 3 kit has a much improved router. It doesn't stand up vertically anymore, it stands up more sort of horizontally like that. And the huge benefit that I'm really happy to see is under here we have some, I think it's under here, right? Oh, that comes right out. Okay. We've got some Ethernet plugs in there. Yes! So finally, at least for my main desktop that I'm using all the time and that I use for streaming and everything, I'm going to have about as fast as a connection as you can get between this and the desktop computer. So that's nice. And it looks like that one on the left is for the antenna. Unfortunately, this is not compatible with my old antenna. It would have been nice if I could just plug in my old antenna, the one that's already out there on the lawn, with the 30-meter cable, which is very nice, because apparently this is 15 meters. So I'm either going to have to get a longer cable if I want to keep the antenna in the same place, or I'm going to have to put this antenna somewhere else. The downsides to this kit are mostly about the antenna mounting, and the upsides are all in the router. Apparently this is Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6. And it looks like this other thing over here is some sort of power brick, right? Yeah, so that's mains voltage in there. Apparently the voltage for the antenna is different too. So the Gen 2 antennas run on 48 volts. This is running, or this rather, is running on 57, I think I was told. So that's another reason that the old antenna is not compatible with this. It's a real shame that they couldn't have done that, because it would have made upgrading a lot easier, and people could upgrade piecemeal. You know, you could just buy this instead of having to get a whole new kit. So what's not so great about this is the mounting system. They've put this little kickstand, I guess you'd call it like that. So the nice thing about this is it sets it at the right angle, or it's probably not optimal for all locations on Earth, but they've taken the best middle ground among all of the locations that you're going to be using it. Maybe not in Antarctica or somewhere, but most locations on Earth will be able to work quite well at that angle off the ground. I presume that's why they've done that. When I look at my antenna that's out there, the actuated one, it's actually a little bit steeper, so I think when I eventually mount this, I'll try and make it match the antenna that I already have that has figured out the best orientation by itself. But meanwhile, the bigger problem is how the heck am I going to mount this, because I can't just put it out on the lawn where I have the other one. So I'm going to have to come up with the mounting for this. I'd like to put this on a pole on the top of my clothesline. I think might be a good place for this, but I'm probably going to have to weld up something to mount this onto. These little notches here clip into the little recesses there when you slide it in. Makes a very solid click noise when it goes in. Sounds very nice and secure. Interestingly, this is plastic, pretty sure. At least it sounds like plastic, and this is aluminium. Sounds like aluminium, pretty sure it is. And it doesn't detach at that hinge, it doesn't seem like. So there's a couple of holes here, or not holes, but like, it's almost like they're telling you this is where you should drill a hole. There's like a little pre-punched, what do you call it? It's like somebody's used a hole punch to show you where to drill. And it's recessed a little bit here too, so you could put a bolt head in here as long as it's not too high. And when you look at the other side of this, the hole goes directly in the middle of here, which means it's going to be directly in the middle of the aluminium piece here. So it's the perfect 4 positions to make a hole. And even though this plastic bit is a bit flimsy by itself, because it has to, this bit has to bend in order for you to be able to pull it up and out to get it out of there. But when you close it up like this, and they're together, it feels really quite strong. So I think what I'm going to have to do is, you know, put 4 bolts through both of these together, keep it closed, and then to set the angle I'll have to make my own sort of wedge piece underneath it and then mount it onto a pole. But I do have a welder and everything, so should be able to figure something out for that. But not today, because I've got things to do. So I think for today I'll just put it out on the lawn as best I can and see if it works. This is the clothesline that I'm talking about. It has a little windy bit there that lets you raise and lower it. So these clotheslines, normally they're made to spin around and around, but if you lower it all the way down, can't quite see it very well. Oh, you can see it there. There's like a little zigzaggy bit there, which fits into zigzaggy bit in the top. Kind of prevents it from spinning around. Not completely, because if you push it hard enough, it rises out of those zigzaggy bits and you can push it around. But just the wind alone is not going to do that. It's not going to be strong enough. And I don't really use this clothesline because it's on the, what's the opposite of sunwood? It's on the south side of the house. So it doesn't get a whole lot of sun. It's not that great for hanging your laundry on, really. But being on the south side of the house, it's perfectly located for the direction that the antenna needs to go. Not quite perfect in the fact that there's some tree branches in the way, but there's not much density to them. Even in summer and spring when there's leaves and flowers on there, there's still not really that much density. I'm your density. So I think I'll just try sticking it on the top of here somehow and see how that goes. Wow, this windy thing actually moves surprisingly smoothly considering how crusty it looks. But anyway, so you see these diagonal, these zigzaggy bits, and you probably can't see it under there, but there's a matching zigzaggy bit, and when we put this down, it sits on there, and you can try and spin it. It doesn't really spin. When you let it go, it just falls back into one of those zigzaggy spots like that, and then it stops. So the wind is not going to be spinning this around and around. And now I just need to sort of make a bracket or a clamp, something like something like this, with a circular bit on it about here, and then a pole that comes up beside that and goes up and past the top there to about there. And then from that point of view, we're actually not going to be looking at many of those trees at all. It's going to be like about there. Okay, so just for today, I realized that the cable is actually long enough to go out that window, And I have a Zoom meeting in about 20 minutes, so I'm just going to slap it out the window there for today. Well, this is interesting. The new antenna on the left is quite a bit larger than the old one. And the angle, also if you look at the angle of that, oh, it's actually not much steeper than what the kickstand on the new one sets it to. Okay, I managed to get the new one pretty close to where the old one is, so this is actually going to be a great position. Not long term really, because it's just coming out the window over there. That's not great, but if we look at the direction and the sky and stuff, oh, it's starting to rain, so I don't want to point my camera up too much, but that's what we're looking at. That should be fine. I got another little piece of equipment recently which might help with this too. So there's a little UPS down there which is dedicated just for the Starlink router only, and I got this after we had about 20 power cuts in one day the week before it was the week before the old router died. So I don't know if it was directly responsible, and the routers are actually supposed to be able to handle that because the instructions for doing a factory reset says turn the power off and on quickly a few times. So I don't think the fact that there were power cuts that day should have mattered, but possibly it's because it was already a little bit damaged, maybe that had something to do with it. But it wasn't the same day though, it was a week later that it finally went crazy. Anyway, so I have 3 UPSs in my house now. Well, look at this! They finally decided to put an LED on the front of the router so that you know that it's on or not. That's another thing that I really didn't like about the old router. You could turn it on, there was just no idea if it was actually on or not. Especially with the UPS in between, you always wonder if the UPS is working properly. So this is really nice to see. Starlink is misaligned by 7 degrees. Tap to align for better performance. Tilt is incorrect. Oh. I wonder if it has an accelerometer in it. I have a feeling that the angle that I set it at least if we look at the old antenna, I matched it as closely as I could to that. So it's probably better than the kickstand would do. Downloading update, okay. It's making quite a lot of noise. I don't know if that's great. Let's see if you can hear that. This thing makes quite a lot of noise too. I don't know if you can hear that. It buzzes a lot more than the previous one did. Okay, I'm just doing some speed testing of the Wi-Fi, and my router is just over there. It's probably about 4 meters away, and it's mostly clear line of sight to all of these devices. So my main desktop is getting 69.5. That's a little bit strange because this is the exact same machine. I'm running Linux here now, but this is the one that I run Windows on, exactly the same machine. Different hard drive, of course. And that's the one that I use for all the Steam downloads, which was getting 80 megabits per second. So I'm not really sure why it's not getting at least 80 right now, but anyway. And so this is the one that I'll be connecting to Ethernet later to see. So we're comparing Wi-Fi of 69 with whatever we get from Ethernet in a minute. And then we have an iPhone XS, I think, 290, iPad 2, 314. As much as I detest Apple's operating systems and software, I've got to say the hardware is quite good. This is a Nexus 7 from 2013, so it's like, what, 12 years old. Almost time to put this one out to pasture, I think, so that's 61. And then a Google Pixel 2 XL, 264. They have a Chromebook, 248. That's doing quite well, isn't it? And some kind of iMac over there. It's running Ubuntu. As I said, we don't want to run Apple's software if we don't really have to, and that's getting 351, pretty good. Okay, so with the wired Ethernet connection, we're getting 333. That's actually the highest one I've seen. I ran it a few times. It's usually slightly less than 300. I was expecting it to be a bit higher because we saw 314 on the iPad, and on the iMac we had 350. So it's really only performing about as fast as the fastest of the Wi-Fis. But it's a darn sight faster than this computer has ever seen, because the Wi-Fi card that was in there is a pretty basic entry-level one. So I think the upper limit of it was actually 80 megabits. So as far as this desktop computer is concerned, it's a huge upgrade in speed. Okay, so we're back to where this all started now, and I found that you can see the peak speed there was 43 megabytes per second. It was pretty fast, but what I found is that every time it got up to about 30, it wouldn't stay over 30 for more than a few seconds, and then it dropped back down to basically 0, and then it had to climb up to that 30 again. So after doing that over and over a few times, I got the feeling that it wasn't really much faster than if it had have just stuck on the constant 10 megabytes per second that I had before. But then I tried limiting the speed. You can see it says downloads limited to 20 megabytes per second. And when they put the limit on, now it's a rock solid 20 megabytes per second all the way through. That's the blue lines. So I might be able to play with this a little bit more. Maybe 25 or so I could go to perhaps. Yeah, it looks like 25 megabytes per second is okay as well. Could possibly go a little bit faster, but that's fast enough for me, so I think I'll leave it there. By the way, does anybody remember Duke Nukem 3D back in the day? I seem to recall that that entire game was 25 megabytes, and that's not the download size or anything, that's installed onto disk size, ready to play. So this could download that in 1 second. Isn't it amazing how things have changed? So I think that's about it for this video. I was actually planning to do a teardown of this thing and see what exactly it was in there that popped, but I watched somebody else's teardown and I realized that this is a piece of glass and it's stuck in with adhesive all the way around to make it waterproof, and trying to get that stuff off is a pain in the ass. I really hate that kind of thing, so I'm just not going to be bothered. Also, I realized that they're actually quite cheap these days now that the new systems are out. So then I thought maybe I could give it away to somebody and somebody else can spend the time to try and fix it, but I looked into transferring ownership or activation of the device to a different account, and apparently once they've been marked as a replacement, there's like serial number on the bottom there or something, but once they've been marked as a replacement, then they can never be activated again. So that's unfortunate. I think maybe the antenna is not subject to that, so if somebody wants the antenna, maybe I could give you that. I'm not sure if that's that's useful either. By the way, these Gen 3 kits right now, there's a special on. Starlink is, I think it's until 23rd of October in New Zealand at least. You can get the whole kit that I just got here with this for $160 instead of $600. Yeah, but if anybody's in the Pukekohe area and they want a Starlink Gen 2 antenna, I'll give you this too, but there's nothing you can really do with it. By the way, when I was watching that teardown, I watched a couple of them actually, and in both cases the components that broke were rated for 250 volts, and in theory that should be okay for a 240 volt system, but interestingly this UPS has a little display on the front which shows the incoming and outgoing voltages that it's seeing, and it's actually 245 here at the moment, which is pretty close to 250. I think if you were doing things ideally, you'd want something to be rated at more than 250, quite a bit more than 250 volts if this is the voltage that's going into it all day, every day. And it wouldn't take much of a power surge to go over the 250, so perhaps the 20 power cuts that we had the week before the router went out. Oh, you see that? Went to 247 just briefly. See how it's sort of bouncing around quite a bit? I actually have another UPS which makes a loud clicking sound as if it's springing into action, and I think that's because the voltage is going too high. I don't know if this one is capable of doing that, but the other one's a little bit more substantial. It cost a lot more than this one did. But anyway, so yeah, I think it could be just the fact that the caps or whatever inside are only rated to 250, and it's just on the edge of being enough. Okay, just had a power cut, and for some reason this is the second power cut today, and the first one, this thing turned off after about 2 minutes. I think that means battery 42% there, and it's only powering the router, so why should it turn off after 2 minutes? Look at the voltage bouncing up and down though, it's all over the place. 280, did you see that? Man, we can't have that. The whole thing is plastic.